A single mom saw a worn-out black man at a bus stop and said, "I think you need a hug. May I?" The November rain fell steadily on Seattle's Capitol Hill as Charlotte Bennett hurried down Pine Street with her 6-year-old daughter Emma's hand clasped firmly in hers. At 29, Charlotte had learned to navigate single motherhood with the efficiency of someone who couldn't afford to waste time or energy on anything that didn't directly benefit her daughter's well-being. "Mommy, can we wait inside somewhere? I'm getting really wet," Emma complained, her blonde curls dampening under her pink raincoat hood. "Just a few more blocks to the bus stop, sweetheart. Then we'll be on our way to your piano lesson." Charlotte's blonde hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her blue eyes scanned the street for their bus route, while mentally calculating whether they'd make it to Emma's lesson on time. Money was tight since her divorce from Brandon Walsh 6 months ago, and piano lessons were one of the few extras she'd managed to keep in Emma's schedule. As they approached the metro bus stop, Charlotte noticed a man sitting alone on the bench, and something about his posture made her slow her rushed pace. He was hunched forward, head in his hands, and even from a distance, she could see the weight of exhaustion or despair in his body language. The man was African American, probably in his early 30s, wearing a maintenance uniform that was damp from the rain. His work boots looked worn, and his shoulders shook slightly. Whether from cold or emotion, Charlotte couldn't tell. "Mommy, why is that man sitting in the rain?" Emma whispered, having noticed him too. "I don't know, honey. Maybe he's just waiting for the bus like we are." But as they got closer, Charlotte could see that this wasn't someone simply waiting for transportation. This was someone who looked like he'd reached the end of his rope. Jerome Washington sat at the bus stop, feeling like the weight of the world had finally crushed him completely. At 32, he'd been laid off from his custodial position at Seattle Children's Hospital that morning. Budget cuts, they'd said, though he suspected his recent complaints about workplace harassment had more to do with it than any financial concerns. The rain soaked through his uniform as he tried to process how he'd tell his 8-year-old son Malik that they might lose their apartment. His ex-wife, Crystal, had been right when she'd said he'd never amount to anything. 3 years post-divorce, and he was proving her prediction accurate in devastating fashion. "Sir?" A gentle female voice interrupted his spiral of despair. "Are you okay?" Jerome looked up to find a blonde woman and a little girl standing nearby, both looking at him with genuine concern rather than the fear or suspicion he'd grown accustomed to from strangers. "I'm fine," he said automatically, though his voice betrayed the lie. "No, you're not," the woman said softly. "And that's okay. We all have days when we're not fine." Charlotte studied the man's face, taking in the exhaustion, the defeat, and something else. A fundamental decency that shone through despite his obvious struggles. "I'm Charlotte, and this is my daughter, Emma. I know this might sound strange, but you look like you could use a hug. Would that be okay?" Jerome stared at her in shock. In his 32 years, no white stranger had ever offered him comfort, much less physical affection. Most crossed the street to avoid him. What? A hug," Charlotte repeated gently. "Sometimes, when everything feels overwhelming, human connection helps. If you're comfortable with it." "Mommy gives the best hugs," Emma added helpfully. "She hugs me when I'm sad about Daddy not living with us anymore." Jerome felt tears prick his eyes at the child's innocent honesty and her mother's unprecedented kindness. "I don't want to make you uncomfortable," he said carefully. Some people don't like what?" Charlotte asked, though she suspected she knew what he meant. "Some people don't like contact with people who look like me." Charlotte felt her heart break a little at the resignation in his voice. "Well, I'm not some people. I'm someone who believes kindness matters more than appearance. So, may I?" Jerome nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. Charlotte stepped forward and wrapped her arms around this stranger's shoulders, offering the kind of unconditional human comfort that had been absent from Jerome's life for far too long. He found himself accepting the embrace, feeling the first moment of peace he'd experienced in months. "Whatever's happening, you're going to get through it," Charlotte whispered. "You're stronger than you know." When they separated, Jerome wiped his eyes with obvious embarrassment. "Thank you. I really needed that. We all need kindness sometimes. What's your name?" "Jerome. Jerome Washington." "Well, Jerome Washington, I hope whatever's troubling you gets better soon." The number 10 bus arrived with a hydraulic sigh, and Charlotte helped Emma climb the steps while fishing for their bus fare. "Wait," Jerome called after her. Can Can I somehow repay your kindness? Pay it forward, Charlotte said simply. When you see someone who needs help, help them. As the bus pulled away, Jerome sat back down on the bench. But something had fundamentally shifted. A stranger's compassion had reminded him that he wasn't invisible, that his life had value, and that tomorrow might be better than today. Bus driver Patricia Rodriguez had witnessed the entire interaction through her rearview mirror and was curious about the woman who'd shown such unusual kindness. That was a beautiful thing you did back there, Patricia said as Charlotte and Emma found seats. Just being human, Charlotte replied, though she found herself thinking about Jerome and wondering about his story. Most people don't stop to help strangers, especially, Patricia trailed off diplomatically. Especially what? Especially across racial lines. You don't see that kind of kindness very often. Charlotte pondered this as the bus navigated Seattle's hills. She'd grown up in a middle-class family that prided itself on being colorblind, but she was beginning to realize that ignoring race was different from actively challenging racial barriers. Mommy, why was that man so sad? Emma asked quietly. I don't know, sweetheart. Sometimes adults have problems that feel too big to handle alone. Is that why you cry sometimes after I go to bed? Charlotte looked at her perceptive daughter with surprise. How do you know I do that? I hear you sometimes, but I know you're trying to fix things. You're right. I am trying to fix things, and sometimes we all need help from other people. Like how you helped that man? Exactly like that. Meanwhile, Jerome had boarded the next bus home, his perspective on the day, and possibly his life, fundamentally altered by an unexpected encounter with kindness. His neighbor, Mrs. Ruby Johnson, a 70-year-old retiree who'd become like a grandmother to his son Malik, was waiting on the building's front steps when Jerome arrived. How did the job go today, baby? Ruby asked, using the endearment she'd adopted for all the struggling young people in their neighborhood. Got laid off, Jerome said, expecting to see disappointment or judgment. Instead, Ruby stood up and pulled him into a fierce hug. Well, that just means something better is coming along. Mrs. Johnson, I can't even pay next month's rent. Then we'll figure something out. You're not alone in this world, Jerome Washington. It was the second unexpected hug of the day, and Jerome was beginning to wonder if the universe was trying to tell him something about the power of human connection. 3 days later, Charlotte was grocery shopping at the Pike Place Market when she spotted a familiar figure stocking produce in the organic vegetables section. Jerome Washington wore a green apron over his clothes and was carefully arranging leafy greens with the same methodical attention she'd noticed at the bus stop. Jerome, Charlotte approached with Emma trailing behind, both of them carrying reusable shopping bags. He looked up with surprise that quickly shifted to genuine pleasure. Charlotte and Emma, right? You remembered, Emma said with delight. Hard to forget someone who helped make a really bad day better, Jerome said, his smile transforming his entire face. You work here? Charlotte asked, gesturing around the bustling market. Started yesterday. Turns out losing one job sometimes leads to finding a better one. That's wonderful. How did you find this position? Actually, it's kind of an interesting story. After our conversation at the bus stop, I was walking home and helped an elderly woman who'd fallen. Turned out she knows the market manager here, and when she mentioned what happened, he said he'd been looking for reliable help. Charlotte felt warmth spread through her chest at this evidence that kindness really did create ripple effects. That's incredible. Your hug reminded me that there are still good people in the world, made me want to be one of them again. Market manager David Chen approached their conversation with obvious curiosity about Jerome's interaction with customers. Jerome, how's the first week going? Really well, Mr. Chen. Charlotte here was just asking about the organic selection. Charlotte's one of our longtime customers, David said warmly, always looking for the freshest produce for her family. Just me and Emma, Charlotte corrected gently. We're a small but mighty family unit. Jerome felt relief at this confirmation that Charlotte was single, though he immediately felt guilty for being pleased about her divorce or separation. Mr. Jerome knows all about vegetables, Emma announced. He told me that carrots used to be purple. Did he? Charlotte laughed. That's quite educational. I've been reading up on produce facts for the job, Jerome admitted. Figured I should know what I'm selling. That's very professional, Charlotte said, impressed by his dedication. As other customers began approaching the produce section, Charlotte realized she should let Jerome return to work. We should let you get back to helping other people, she said. Actually, Jerome said carefully, would you and Emma like to get coffee sometime? There's a great little place near here that's very kid-friendly. Charlotte felt her pulse quicken. Was he asking them on a date or just extending friendship? We'd love to, she said, deciding not to overthink the invitation. How about Saturday morning? Emma, do you like hot chocolate? I love hot chocolate. Perfect. There's a place called The Daily Grind that makes the best hot chocolate in Seattle. After exchanging phone numbers and making plans, Charlotte and Emma continued their shopping with Emma chattering excitedly about their new friend Jerome. Mommy, I like Mr. Jerome. He's nice. He is nice. Is he going to be your boyfriend? Charlotte felt heat in her cheeks at her daughter's directness. Emma, he's just a friend. Sometimes adults can be friends without being boyfriend and girlfriend. But you smiled different when you talked to him. Different how? Like when you're really happy instead of just regular happy. That evening, Charlotte called her best friend Rachel Martinez to discuss the unexpected development in her social life. So let me get this straight, Rachel said. You offered a random stranger a hug at a bus stop, and now you're going on a coffee date? It's not a date. It's just coffee with a friend. A friend you're attracted to? I didn't say I was attracted to him. Charlotte, I've known you since college. I can hear attraction in your voice. Charlotte sighed, acknowledging the truth. Okay, yes, I'm attracted to him. He's kind, hardworking, great with Emma, and... She paused. And gorgeous. Really, genuinely gorgeous. What's the problem then? Rachel, he's black. So? So my family's going to have opinions. My ex-husband is going to have opinions. Emma's going to hear comments that I'm not prepared to help her navigate. Charlotte, are you really going to let other people's prejudices prevent you from getting to know someone who makes you smile different? Emma said that too, that I smile different around him. Kids notice things. Maybe you should pay attention to what she's noticing. Meanwhile, Jerome was having his own conversation with his 8-year-old son, Malik, who just returned from spending the evening with Mrs. Ruby Johnson. Dad, Mrs. Johnson says you met a nice lady at the market. Mrs. Johnson talks too much, Jerome said with amused affection for his meddling neighbor. Is she pretty? Yes, she's pretty. But more importantly, she's kind. Is she white? The direct question surprised Jerome. Why do you ask that? Because Mrs. Johnson said some people might have opinions about you dating a white lady. Mrs. Johnson really does talk too much. But yes, she's white. Are you going to marry her? Malik, I just met her. We're just getting to know each other as friends. But you like her. I like her. Then that's all that matters, right? Jerome smiled at his son's innocent wisdom. Right. Saturday morning arrived crisp and clear, and Charlotte found herself changing clothes 3 times before settling on jeans and a sweater that was casual but flattering. Emma wore her favorite dress and insisted on bringing her small purse because ladies always carry purses to coffee dates. The Daily Grind was a cozy neighborhood coffee shop with mismatched furniture, local art on the walls, and the kind of welcoming atmosphere that made everyone feel comfortable. Jerome was already waiting at a corner table when they arrived, having clearly made an effort to look nice in dark jeans and a blue button-down shirt. Ladies, right on time, he said, standing to greet them. Mr. Jerome, I brought my purse, Emma announced, showing off her small pink bag. Very fancy. I'm honored to have coffee with such an elegant young lady. As they settled at their table with coffee for the adults and hot chocolate for Emma, conversation flowed easily between topics ranging from Emma's school activities to Jerome's previous work experience, to Charlotte's real estate career. You're a real estate agent? Jerome asked with interest. That must be fascinating work. I love helping families find homes. There's something satisfying about matching people with the right place to build their lives. That sounds like meaningful work. What about you? What did you do before the market? I was in hospital maintenance at Seattle Children's. Loved the work. Felt good to contribute to a place that helps kids. But the environment became challenging. Charlotte sensed there was more to the story but didn't push for details. Daddy used to fix things at the hospital where sick kids go. Malik had suddenly appeared next to their table with Mrs. Ruby Johnson in tow. Malik, what are you doing here? Mrs. Johnson said we needed milk, and this was on the way to the store, Malik explained innocently. Mrs. Ruby Johnson smiled with obvious satisfaction at the coincidental encounter. Well, hello there. I'm Ruby Johnson, Jerome's neighbor. Charlotte Bennett, and this is my daughter Emma. Pleasure to meet you both. Jerome's mentioned you. Has he? Charlotte glanced at Jerome, who looked embarrassed by his neighbor's meddling. Oh yes. Couldn't stop talking about the kind lady who brightened his day. Emma and Malik immediately began chatting about their favorite video games, while the adults navigated the awkward but sweet introduction. Mrs. Johnson, we were supposed to get milk and go home, Jerome reminded his neighbor diplomatically. Right. Just wanted to meet the young lady who's put such a spring in your step. After Mrs. Johnson and Malik left for their grocery run, Jerome looked at Charlotte with obvious embarrassment. I'm sorry about that. Mrs. Johnson means well, but she's not exactly subtle. It's sweet that she cares about you. She's been like a grandmother to Malik since his mother moved to California. His mother moved away. My ex-wife Crystal decided single motherhood was too difficult, so she signed over custody and moved to Los Angeles to pursue an acting career. I'm sorry. That must have been incredibly difficult. It was. But Malik and I have figured out how to be a pretty good team. Charlotte felt her heart go out to both Jerome and his son. She knew the challenges of single parenting, but she couldn't imagine choosing to abandon Emma. It sounds like you're an amazing father. I try. Some days are harder than others. I understand that completely. As they prepared to leave the coffee shop, Emma made an announcement that surprised both adults. Mommy, can Malik come over for a play date sometime? That's up to his daddy, sweetheart. Jerome looked at Charlotte questioningly. Would that be okay with you? I'd love to have Malik over. Emma could use a friend, and it sounds like you both could use some adult conversation. That sounds perfect. As they exchanged contact information for the play date, Charlotte realized she was already looking forward to seeing Jerome again, and not just for Emma's sake. Walking home, Emma skipped beside her mother with obvious satisfaction. Mommy, I like Mr. Jerome and Malik. I like them too, sweetheart. Are we going to be friends with them for a long time? I hope so, Emma. I really hope so. Charlotte found herself hoping for much more than friendship, but she was beginning to understand that hoping and achieving might be two very different things when it came to interracial relationships in a world that still had strong opinions about who belonged with whom. 2 weeks of regular text exchanges and another coffee date had led to Charlotte inviting Jerome and Malik over for Sunday dinner. As she prepared pot roast and vegetables, she found herself nervous in a way she hadn't experienced since high school. Mommy, you're cleaning things that are already clean, Emma observed from her perch at the kitchen table. I want everything to be nice for our guests. It's just Mr. Jerome and Malik. They don't care if our house is perfect. Emma was right, but Charlotte couldn't shake her anxiety about this next step in their developing relationship. Having Jerome in her home felt significant in ways that public coffee dates hadn't. When Jerome and Malik arrived, both carrying small gifts, flowers for Charlotte and a book for Emma, Charlotte felt her nervousness transform into genuine warmth. You didn't have to bring anything, she protested as Jerome handed her a bouquet of sunflowers. My mother raised me to never show up empty-handed, Jerome replied. Besides, Malik insisted we should bring presents for our hostesses. Malik had brought Emma a picture book about ocean creatures, which immediately sparked an animated conversation about their favorite sea animals. This is really thoughtful, Charlotte said, flipping through the educational book. Thank you both. As dinner cooked, the four of them settled in Charlotte's living room, where Emma proudly showed Malik her collection of art supplies while the adults talked. Your home is beautiful, Jerome said, taking in the warm decor and evidence of Charlotte's life with Emma. Family photos, Emma's artwork on the refrigerator, bookshelves filled with both adult novels and children's stories. Thank you. We've tried to make it feel like home. How long have you lived here? 2 years. Bought it after my divorce was finalized. Wanted Emma to have stability and consistency. Jerome understood the challenge of creating security for a child during family upheaval. That must have been difficult. House hunting while dealing with divorce proceedings. It was, but it was also empowering. Making decisions about where we'd live, how we'd build our new life together. What happened with your marriage, if you don't mind me asking? Charlotte glanced toward Emma and Malik, who were absorbed in their play. Brandon wasn't ready for the responsibilities of fatherhood. When Emma was born, he became resentful of the attention she required and started spending more time at work and with friends than at home. Did he want children? He said he did, but I think he wanted the idea of children more than the reality. When Emma had colic for the first 6 months, he couldn't handle the disruption to his life. Jerome felt anger on behalf of Charlotte and Emma. Some people aren't cut out for putting their children first. What about Malik's mother? if you don't mind talking about it. Crystal wanted to be a mother until she realized how much work it actually involved. When Malik was 5, she started complaining that motherhood was preventing her from pursuing her dreams. Pursuing her dreams how? She wanted to be an actress, felt like being a wife, and mother was holding her back from fame and success in Hollywood. So she left both of you? Signed over custody, moved to LA, and sends birthday cards twice a year. Charlotte felt her heart break for both Jerome and Malik. How do you explain that to an 8-year-old? I tell him that some people aren't ready to be parents, and that's not his fault. That he's loved and wanted by the people who matter. You're an incredible father. So are you. An incredible mother, I mean. Their conversation was interrupted by Emma and Malik, who'd apparently been planning something together. Mommy, can we play family? Emma asked. What do you mean, sweetheart? Like, can we pretend Mr. Jerome is the daddy, and you're the mommy, and me and Malik are brother and sister? Both adults felt the weight of that innocent request. Children saw the family unit they were unconsciously creating, while the adults were still figuring out their own feelings. That sounds like a fun game, Charlotte said carefully. What would we do in this pretend family? Make dinner together, watch movies, play games, Malik suggested. Help each other when someone is sad, Emma added. Jerome and Charlotte exchanged glances, both recognizing how naturally their children were blending despite having known each other for only a few weeks. Over dinner, conversation flowed easily between topics, ranging from Emma and Malik's school activities, to Jerome's growing responsibilities at the market, to Charlotte's recent real estate sales. Mr. Jerome, do you like working at the market? Emma asked. I do. I get to meet interesting people and learn about different types of food. Daddy knows everything about vegetables now, Malik said proudly. He taught me that corn is actually a grain, not a vegetable. Really? Emma was fascinated by this information. What else isn't what it seems like? Jerome launched into an educational discussion about botanical classifications that had both children hanging on every word. Charlotte watched with growing admiration as he managed to make learning fun and accessible. After dinner, as they cleaned up together while the children played in the living room, Charlotte found herself studying Jerome's easy competence in her kitchen. You're very comfortable helping with domestic tasks, she observed. Not all men are. Single parenting teaches you that there's no such thing as women's work and men's work. There's just work that needs to be done. That's a healthy perspective. What about your ex-husband? Was he helpful around the house? Brandon believed that providing financially meant he didn't need to contribute to household tasks or childcare, even when I was working too. Jerome shook his head in disapproval. Partnership means sharing all the responsibilities, not just the ones you prefer. You'd think that would be obvious, but apparently not. As evening progressed and it became time for Jerome and Malik to head home, neither child wanted the visit to end. Can we do this again next week? Malik asked hopefully. If Ms. Charlotte doesn't mind having us over again, Jerome said. We'd love to have you over again, Charlotte replied honestly. Maybe next time you can cook for us? I make excellent spaghetti and meatballs, Jerome offered. That sounds perfect. As Jerome and Malik prepared to leave, Emma hugged them both goodbye with the natural affection she'd always shown to people she cared about. Thank you for coming to dinner, she said formally, then added, I hope you can be part of our family for real someday. The innocent comment hung in the air as Jerome and Charlotte said their goodbyes, both adults acutely aware that their children were already emotionally investing in a relationship the adults were still exploring. After they left, Charlotte tucked Emma into bed and found herself answering questions about their guests. Mommy, do you like Mr. Jerome? Yes, I like him very much. Do you like him the way you used to like Daddy before you got married? Charlotte paused, considering how honest to be with her 6-year-old. It's different, sweetheart. I'm older now, and I understand better what makes people good for each other. What makes Mr. Jerome good for you? He's kind, he's a good father, he's smart, and he makes me laugh. And he's nice to me. Very nice to you. That's important to me, that you like and trust the people I spend time with. I do like him, and Malik feels like a brother already. Charlotte felt both joy and anxiety at Emma's rapid attachment to Jerome and his son. If their relationship didn't work out, Emma would experience another loss of a father figure. But as she replayed the evening's conversations and interactions, Charlotte found herself increasingly certain that Jerome Washington was worth the risk of opening their hearts to love again. The question was whether the world around them would let them explore that love without interference from people who had strong opinions about interracial relationships. How's this story hitting you so far? Tell us in the comments. If you're loving it, type 1. If not, type 0. We want to know what you think. The following Thursday, Charlotte was showing a house to prospective buyers when her phone rang with a call from her mother, Linda Brennan. Since Charlotte's divorce, Linda had been increasingly involved in her daughter's social life, with opinions about everything, from Emma's activities to Charlotte's dating prospects. "Charlotte, dear, I had lunch with Margaret Walsh today." Margaret Walsh was Brandon's mother, and any conversation with her was guaranteed to be problematic. "Okay?" Charlotte said carefully, stepping away from her clients to take the call privately. She mentioned that Brandon is concerned about Emma's well-being. Emma's well-being? Why would Brandon be concerned? He sees her every other weekend. Apparently, Emma mentioned making friends with a boy named Malik and his father Jerome. Margaret seemed to think there might be something inappropriate about this friendship. Charlotte felt her stomach drop. Inappropriate how? She wasn't specific, but she did mention that this Jerome person is, well, she said he's not from our usual social circle. "Mom, what exactly are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything, dear. I'm simply passing along Brandon's concerns about who Emma is being exposed to." Charlotte realized that Brandon had used Emma's innocent mentions of Malik and Jerome to gather intelligence about her personal life, then involved his mother in creating drama. "Mom, Jerome is a friend, a good friend who happens to be a wonderful father to his own son. A friend who is black, if that's what you're trying to ask." There was silence on the other end of the line before Linda spoke again, her voice carefully controlled. "Charlotte, I hope you're being thoughtful about the example you're setting for Emma." "What example would that be?" "About appropriate social relationships and the complications that can arise from crossing certain boundaries. The only boundary being crossed is the one between loneliness and companionship." "Charlotte Elizabeth, you have to think about Emma's future. How will this affect her socially? What will people think?" "People will think that Emma is being raised by a mother who judges people by their character rather than their skin color." That's very idealistic, but the world isn't idealistic. There are realities you need to consider. After ending the frustrating call, Charlotte tried to focus on her clients, but her mother's words echoed in her mind. She'd grown up in a family that considered itself progressive, but apparently their progressivism had limits when it came to actual relationships across racial lines. That evening, Jerome called to check on their plans for the weekend, and Charlotte found herself sharing her mother's concerns. "I'm sorry you're dealing with family pressure," Jerome said after Charlotte explained the conversation. "I understand how difficult that must be. It's not just my mother. My ex-husband is apparently gathering information about my social life through Emma's innocent conversations. Are you having second thoughts about us spending time together?" "No," Charlotte said firmly, "but I'm beginning to understand the complications you mentioned. This is just the beginning, Charlotte. If we continue developing feelings for each other, the pressure and scrutiny will intensify." "Are you having second thoughts?" "About you? Never. About subjecting you and Emma to judgment and prejudice? Every day. Jerome, I don't want other people's opinions to dictate who I care about. Neither do I. But I also don't want my feelings for you to cause problems for Emma at school or in your family." Their conversation was interrupted by Charlotte's doorbell. When she answered, she found her neighbor Kelly Thompson standing on the porch with obvious discomfort. "Charlotte, I hope you don't mind me stopping by." "Of course not. What's going on?" "I wanted to give you a heads up about something. There's been some talk in the neighborhood about your recent visitors." Charlotte felt anger building. "What kind of talk?" "Some people have noticed that you've been having a black man and child over regularly, and they're concerned about property values and neighborhood safety." "Neighborhood safety? Kelly, are you serious right now?" "I'm not saying I agree with their concerns, but I thought you should know what people are saying." "What people specifically?" "The Hendersons, the Johnsons, a few others. They're worried about the type of people you're attracting to the neighborhood." Charlotte looked at her neighbor with dawning understanding of the racism that had apparently been lurking beneath the surface of her supposedly progressive community. "Kelly, Jerome is a hard-working single father who treats my daughter with kindness and respect. If anyone has problems with that, they're welcome to discuss it with me directly. I'm just the messenger, Charlotte. I thought you'd want to know." After Kelly left, Charlotte called Jerome back to continue their conversation. "Jerome, I need to ask you something. have you experienced problems in your neighborhood because of spending time with me and Emma? Jerome was quiet for a moment. Some looks, some comments. Mrs. Johnson said a few people have asked her about my white girlfriend. How do you handle it? Same way I handle most racism. Ignore it when possible, address it directly when necessary, and focus on what matters most, which is building something real with someone who sees my value instead of just my race. Is that how you see me? As someone who sees your value? Charlotte, you offered me a hug when I was at my lowest point. You didn't see a potentially dangerous black man. You saw a human being who needed kindness. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. Meanwhile, Jerome was dealing with his own family pressures. His older brother Keith Washington had called earlier that week with concerns about Jerome's new relationship. Jerome, man, are you sure you know what you're doing with this white woman? Her name is Charlotte. And yes, I know what I'm doing. Do you? Because white women who date black men often have ulterior motives. What kind of ulterior motives? Rebellion against their families, curiosity about black men, social experimenting. When the novelty wears off or the social pressure gets too intense, they disappear. Charlotte's not like that. How do you know? You've known her for a few weeks. I know because of how she treats Malik. You can't fake genuine affection for someone's child. I'm just saying, be careful. And think about Malik. What happens if this white woman breaks your heart? What does that teach him about trusting people? Jerome understood his brother's protective concerns, but he also knew that Charlotte had shown him and Malik more consistent kindness than many people of any race. The weekend playdate went forward as planned, despite the external pressures both adults were facing. But as Charlotte and Jerome watched Emma and Malik play together with obvious joy, they both realized they were no longer just exploring a relationship. They were protecting something precious that was already forming. Charlotte, Jerome said as they sat in her backyard watching their children, I need you to know that whatever develops between us, I don't take lightly your willingness to deal with other people's prejudices. And I need you to know that I don't take lightly your willingness to trust me with your son's emotions. So, where does that leave us? It leaves us deciding whether we're brave enough to choose each other despite what other people think. Are you that brave? With you? I think I might be. As evening approached and Jerome and Malik prepared to leave, Emma made another innocent announcement that crystallized the stakes for both adults. Mommy, I told my class about Malik and Mr. Jerome today during sharing time. What did you tell them, sweetheart? That we have new friends who might become our family. My teacher said that sounds very nice. What did your classmates say? Tommy said his dad told him that black people and white people shouldn't be friends. But I told him that was silly because Mr. Jerome is the nicest man I know besides Grandpa. Charlotte and Jerome exchanged glances, realizing that their relationship was already affecting their children's understanding of race and social relationships. What did your teacher say when Tommy said that? Jerome asked gently. She said that all people should be kind to each other, regardless of what they look like, and that Tommy should ask his father to explain why he thinks friendship should depend on skin color. Your teacher sounds very wise, Jerome said. She is, and she said she'd like to meet you sometime because any friend of mine is welcome at our school. As Charlotte tucked Emma into bed that night, she realized that her daughter was already developing a sophisticated understanding of racial equality that would serve her well throughout life. But she also understood that protecting Emma's innocent perspective would require constant vigilance against the prejudices of less enlightened adults. The question was whether she and Jerome were strong enough, individually and together, to create a protective bubble around their children while building something beautiful for themselves. 3 weeks later, Charlotte arrived at the Pike Place Market for her regular shopping trip, but this time she had an ulterior motive. She wanted to see Jerome in his work environment and gauge how comfortable he was with their relationship being more visible. She found him training a new employee, demonstrating proper produce handling with the patience and competence she'd come to associate with everything he did. Charlotte, Jerome's face lit up when he saw her. This is a nice surprise. Just doing my weekly shopping. How's the training going? My student here is very eager to learn. Antonio, this is Charlotte, one of our best customers. Antonio Rivera, a young man who was obviously grateful for Jerome's mentorship, shook Charlotte's hand enthusiastically. Jerome's been teaching me everything about the business. He's an excellent teacher. I'm sure he is, Charlotte said with pride in Jerome's professional skills. As Charlotte shopped, She noticed other market vendors and customers observing her interaction with Jerome with various degrees of interest and approval. Some seemed pleased to see Jerome with someone who obviously cared about him, while others appeared puzzled or disapproving. Market manager David Chen approached as Charlotte was finishing her purchases. "Charlotte, how's Emma doing?" "Very well, thank you. She's excited about her upcoming school play." Jerome mentioned that. "He seems very fond of both of you." "We're very fond of him, too." "Good. Jerome's one of our best employees. Reliable, hardworking, great with customers. He deserves to be happy." The subtle endorsement warmed Charlotte's heart and reinforced her belief that Jerome was valued and respected by people who knew him well. As Charlotte prepared to leave, Jerome walked her to the exit with obvious reluctance to see her go. "Would you like to have dinner tomorrow night?" he asked. "Just the two of us? Malik can stay with Mrs. Johnson, and maybe Emma could stay with a friend." Charlotte felt her pulse quicken at the suggestion of their first official date, without children present. "I'd love that. What did you have in mind?" "There's a restaurant in my neighborhood that serves incredible Ethiopian food. Very casual, family-owned, authentic cuisine." "That sounds perfect. I've never had Ethiopian food." "Then you're in for a treat." The next evening, Charlotte arranged for Emma to spend the night with her friend Sophie Chen, David's daughter, then spent an embarrassing amount of time choosing an outfit that was nice enough for a date, but not overdressed for a casual neighborhood restaurant. When Jerome picked her up, he looked handsome in dark jeans and a button-down shirt, and Charlotte felt the flutter of attraction that had been building since their first coffee date. "You look beautiful," he said, helping her into his truck. "Thank you. You look pretty wonderful yourself." Blue Nile Ethiopian Restaurant was exactly as Jerome had described. A small, family-owned establishment with authentic decor, traditional music, and the warmth of a place where everyone was treated like honored guests. Owner Almaz Tesfaye greeted Jerome like family and welcomed Charlotte with genuine enthusiasm. "Jerome, you brought us someone special." "Almaz, this is Charlotte." "Charlotte, Almaz makes the best injera in Seattle." As they settled at a low table with traditional seating, Jerome explained Ethiopian dining customs and helped Charlotte navigate the communal eating style. "So you eat everything with your hands?" Charlotte asked, fascinated by the cultural experience. "It's designed to bring people together. Sharing food from the same plate builds connection and trust." "I like that philosophy." As they shared various dishes and conversation flowed from childhood memories to future dreams, Charlotte found herself falling deeper for this thoughtful, intelligent man who treated her like someone precious while never making her feel fragile. "Jerome, can I ask you something personal?" "Always." "What do you want for your future? For yourself and Malik?" "I want to build something lasting, a stable home, meaningful work, maybe expand my education, and—" He paused. And find someone to share it all with. Someone who loves Malik and wants to build something beautiful together." "What about you? What do you want for your future?" Charlotte considered her honest answer. "I want to feel valued and respected in a relationship. I want Emma to see that healthy partnerships exist, and I want to be with someone who makes me feel like the best version of myself." "Do I make you feel that way?" "You make me feel like I'm finally understanding what real partnership looks like." Their conversation was interrupted by Charlotte's phone buzzing insistently. She glanced at the screen and saw multiple missed calls from her mother. "I'm sorry, I should check this. My mother's been calling repeatedly." "Of course. Take all the time you need." Charlotte stepped outside to return her mother's call, immediately sensing something was wrong from Linda's frantic tone. "Charlotte, thank goodness. Where are you?" "I'm having dinner." "What's wrong?" "Brandon's been calling. He's very upset about something Emma told him during their phone call tonight." "What did Emma tell him?" "That you're on a date with Jerome. A real date, without the children." Charlotte felt anger building at Brandon's continued surveillance of her personal life through their daughter. And he's threatening to file for custody modification, claiming you're exposing Emma to inappropriate situations." "Inappropriate how?" Having dinner with a friend. A friend you're romantically involved with, according to Emma's descriptions." "Mom, my dating life is not Brandon's business, unless it directly affects Emma's well-being. That's what he's claiming, that your relationship choices are affecting her well-being. Based on what evidence?" "Based on his concerns about the type of environment you're creating for her." Charlotte understood that type of environment was code for interracial relationship, and she felt fury at Brandon's willingness to use their daughter to express his racism. "Mom, I have to go. I'm not going to let Brandon's prejudices dictate my personal choices. Charlotte, please think carefully about this. Is this relationship worth fighting a custody battle? This relationship is worth fighting any battle. When Charlotte returned to the table, Jerome immediately noticed her distress. Everything okay? Charlotte explained Brandon's threats and her mother's concerns, while Jerome listened with growing understanding and resignation. I was afraid something like this would happen, Jerome said quietly. Are you going to tell me we should stop seeing each other? I'm going to tell you that I understand if you need to prioritize Emma's security over our relationship. What if I don't want to choose between Emma's security and our relationship? What if I want to fight for both? Fighting means lawyers, court hearings, public scrutiny of your personal life, and putting Emma through the stress of a custody battle. It also means refusing to let racism win. Jerome reached across the table and took her hand. Charlotte, I care about you more than I should after such a short time, but I care about Emma too, and I won't be the reason she loses stability or suffers because of other people's prejudices. What if she suffers more from learning that love isn't worth fighting for? What do you mean? What if the lesson here is that we don't abandon people we love just because other people disapprove? What if Emma needs to see that real love means standing up for each other? Jerome smiled at her answer. Are you saying you love me, Charlotte Bennett? I'm saying I'm falling in love with you, Jerome Washington. And I'm not going to let my racist ex-husband or narrow-minded family members prevent me from exploring what we could build together, even if it means fighting battles you've never had to fight before, especially because it means fighting battles that matter. As they left the restaurant, hand in hand for the first time, both Charlotte and Jerome understood that they were choosing each other despite the challenges ahead. They were also choosing to model courage and authentic love for their children, regardless of what it cost them socially or legally. So what happens now? Jerome asked as they reached his truck. Now we build something beautiful together and teach our children that love is stronger than prejudice, even when prejudice comes from family members and legal systems. Especially then. When Jerome kissed her goodnight on her front porch, Charlotte felt the certainty of someone who'd finally found what she'd been looking for her entire adult life. It might require fighting for, but the best things in life usually did. How's this story hitting you so far? Tell us in the comments. If you're loving it, type 1. If not, type 0. We want to know what you think. The community center was buzzing with excitement as families gathered for the annual multicultural festival that had become a highlight of Charlotte and Jerome's neighborhood. Tables laden with food from various cultures surrounded a small stage where children would perform songs and dances representing their heritage. Mommy, are you sure my costume looks okay? Emma asked, adjusting her Ethiopian traditional dress that Almaz Tesfaye had helped them find for the cultural presentation she and Malik were giving together. You look beautiful, sweetheart, and your presentation about Ethiopian culture is going to be wonderful. Emma and Malik had become fascinated by different cultures through their blended family experience and had asked to research and present about Jerome's friendship with the Ethiopian restaurant community. Dad, do you think people will like learning about injera bread? Malik asked Jerome, who was helping both children prepare their presentation materials. I think people will love learning about sharing food and building community. Charlotte watched Jerome with both children, patient, encouraging, educational, and marveled at how naturally he'd transitioned into being a stepfather to Emma while remaining devoted to Malik. The custody battle with Brandon had lasted 6 months, but ultimately strengthened rather than threatened their family unit. When the judge had interviewed Emma privately and heard her articulate, thoughtful responses about feeling safe and loved in her mother's home, Brandon's claims of inappropriate environment had been thoroughly dismissed. Charlotte, Rachel Martinez approached with her own family in tow. How are the star presenters feeling? Nervous, but excited, Charlotte replied, accepting a hug from her best friend, who'd become one of their strongest supporters. And how are the star parents? Jerome and Charlotte exchanged the kind of loving glance that still made Charlotte's heart skip after a year of marriage. Proud, Jerome answered. These kids have put so much work into understanding and appreciating cultural differences. They're lucky to have parents who model that kind of openness. Mrs. Ruby Johnson appeared with obvious satisfaction at the family unit she'd watched develop over the past year. Are my babies ready to teach the community about Ethiopian traditions? We're ready, Grandma Ruby, Emma and Malik chorused, having adopted Jerome's neighbor as an honorary grandmother. Charlotte's Mother Linda approached with careful steps, still adjusting to her daughter's interracial marriage, but making genuine efforts to build relationships with Jerome and Malik. "Jerome, I brought those family photos you asked about," Linda said, handing him an envelope. "The ones from Charlotte's childhood that you thought Emma might want to see." "Thank you, Mrs. Brennan. Emma loves learning about her family history." The relationship between Linda and Jerome had required patience and multiple conversations, but Charlotte's mother had gradually recognized that Jerome's character and devotion to his family mattered more than her initial prejudices. As the children's presentation began, Charlotte and Jerome stood with their extended chosen family: Mrs. Ruby, Rachel and her family, Almaz and her husband, David Chen and his family, and even Linda Brennan, watching Emma and Malik explain the cultural significance of communal dining and community building. "Food brings people together across all differences," Emma said into the microphone with confidence. "When you share a meal with someone, you share friendship. And friendship is more important than what people look like or where they came from," Malik added. "Our family learned about Ethiopian culture through our friend Miss Almaz, and now we know that families can be made of people from everywhere who choose to love each other." Charlotte felt tears of pride as their children articulated the lessons their blended family had taught about acceptance, courage, and the power of chosen love over biological or cultural limitation. After the presentation, as families mingled and children played together in the increasingly diverse community they'd helped create, Jerome pulled Charlotte aside for a private moment. "Any regrets about choosing the complicated path?" he asked, echoing a question he'd asked multiple times during their first year together. "Only that it took me so long to understand that the best things in life are usually complicated." "What do you mean?" "Raising children is complicated but rewarding. Building a career is complicated but fulfilling. And loving across differences is complicated but transformative." "For all of us?" "For all of us." Emma's learned that families come in all configurations. Malik's learned that love isn't limited by race, and I've learned that courage is contagious. What about me? What have I learned? Charlotte smiled at her husband, with the kind of love that had grown deeper through shared challenges and victories. "You've learned that sometimes strangers offer exactly what you need, exactly when you need it. Like a hug at a bus stop? Like a hug at a bus stop that led to everything we never knew we were looking for." As they rejoined their family and friends, watching Emma and Malik play with children from multiple cultural backgrounds while their extended family celebrated together, Charlotte reflected on the journey that had started. With a simple moment of human kindness, a year ago, she'd offered a hug to a stranger who looked like he needed comfort. Today, that stranger was her husband. Her children had a father who adored them, and their family had become proof that love really could overcome any obstacle when people were brave enough to choose each other, despite social pressure. Their love story had taught everyone around them that the most beautiful families were built by people who saw past surface differences to recognize shared values, mutual respect, and the courage to stand up for each other when the world tried to tear them apart. And it all started with a single mother who saw a worn-out man at a bus stop and had the compassion to offer exactly what he needed most: human connection that reminded him he mattered. Sometimes, the most extraordinary love stories begin with the simplest acts of kindness between strangers who recognize each other's humanity despite every reason to look the other way.